Welcome to Timeless Hub. We're diving into one of the most dangerous places on the planet, a spot where a long-forgotten conflict could suddenly erupt into a massive global crisis. And at the center of it all, Taiwan. It's an island caught in this incredible tug-of-war between the US and China. But here's the thing you have to understand. This isn't some new fight. It's an old one. A civil war that was essentially frozen in time for more than 70 years. And, well, now it looks like that ice is finally starting to crack. Okay, so you might be asking, why now? Why is Taiwan all over the headlines at this very moment? Well, it all kicked off with a recent presidential election. And let me tell you, the results sent some serious shockwaves all the way from Beijing to Washington. So at the start of 2024, Taiwan elected a new president, Lai Ching-te, of the Democratic Progressive Party, the DPP. But look at that number. He won with just over 40% of the vote. Now that is not a landslide by any stretch. In fact, it's a huge sign that the island is really divided politically. And this weakness has a name. Experts are calling it a triple minority government. The best way to think about it is like a stool with three wobbly legs. You know? First, the president didn't get a majority of the votes. Second, his party actually lost control of the legislature. And third, on a local level, they only govern a few of the counties and cities. It's a recipe for instability. And that kind of situation, well, that's something Beijing is always watching very closely. And when you have that kind of uncertainty inside Taiwan, it makes Beijing's stance feel, well, pretty ominous. See, back in 2005, China passed this thing called the anti-secession law. It's not subtle at all. It basically says that if Taiwan ever tries to make a formal break for independence, China can use non-peaceful means to stop it. Let's be real. That's a legal green light for an invasion, and it's just hanging over the island 24/7. But to really get why things are so tense, we've got to go back, way back. Because what we're seeing today isn't some new conflict popping up out of nowhere. No. This is more like the final unwritten chapter of a war that never really ended. It just got put on pause. And this timeline, wow, it really lays out how messy this whole thing is. It all kicks off in 1949 when the losing side of China's civil war flees to Taiwan. A year later, the Korean War starts, and suddenly, the US Navy is there acting as Taiwan's protector. But then fast forward to 1979, this is the big one. The US switches sides, officially recognizing the government in Beijing. But, and you can't make this up, in the very same year, the US Congress passes a law that forces America to keep selling weapons to Taiwan. It's the ultimate example of trying to have your cake and eat it too. You know, this leads to one of history's biggest what-ifs. Even Henry Kissinger said it, if the Korean War had never happened, Taiwan would probably be part of mainland China today. So what happened is that American intervention basically hit the pause button on the Chinese Civil War, freezing it in place and creating this whole two Chinas puzzle that we're still trying to solve. Okay, so that's how we got here. Now let's talk about today's game plan. We're looking at a high-stakes chess match with three main players, Beijing, Washington, and of course, Taipei. For Beijing, it's pretty simple. Everything, and I mean everything, comes back to something called the One China principle. This isn't just a policy, it's the absolute foundation of their national identity. The idea is that there's only one China, and Taiwan is a part of it. Period. It's completely non-negotiable. And this principle leads them to this two-faced strategy. Publicly, you'll hear them talk all the time about peaceful reunification. That's the velvet glove. But that anti-secession law we talked about, that's the iron fist inside it. It's like offering a handshake while holding a sword behind your back. Now, to get what they want without actually starting a war, Beijing uses a tactic called hybrid warfare. So what is that? It's basically a non-stop under-the-radar campaign of cyber attacks, fake news, election meddling, you name it. The whole point is to weaken and destabilize Taiwan from within without ever firing a single shot. But of course, If you ask Beijing about this, they'll deny it all. In fact, they do a complete 180 and point the finger right back at Washington. Their official line is that the U.S. is the one spreading all the disinformation. And while all this is going on, Taiwan itself is basically split right down the middle. You've got two main camps. On one side, there's the Pan-Green Coalition. That's the party in power right now. They're all about a separate, unique Taiwanese identity. But then you have the Pan-Blue Coalition, and they lean towards building closer business and political ties with mainland China. And these two ideas for the future, they just don't mix. Which brings us to Washington and its famously, confusing policy. It's called strategic ambiguity. What does that mean? It means the U.S. has intentionally, for decades, refused to say for sure whether it would or wouldn't send troops to defend Taiwan if China invaded. It's a weird balancing act, right? The goal is to keep Beijing on its toes, but also to keep Taipei from doing something rash like declaring full independence. So on the one hand, you have the official public statement. The U.S. government will tell anyone who asks that it does not support Taiwan independence. It's the line they use to try and keep things calm with Beijing. But then you look at what the U.S. does. Actions speak louder than words, right? It sells billions of dollars worth of advanced military gear to Taiwan. It sends its warships sailing right through the Taiwan Strait. And most important of all, there's a U.S. law, the Taiwan Relations Act, that basically says America has to make sure Taiwan can defend itself. It's a total tightrope walk over a barrel of gunpowder. Okay, so with all this political drama, you might be wondering why should the rest of the world care? Well, the answer has nothing to do with politics and everything to do with technology. In fact, it's probably inside the very screen you're looking at right now. 90%. Just remember that number, because that one number explains why Taiwan is so incredibly important to the entire global economy. It's their share of the single most important manufactured good on the planet. We're talking about the world's most advanced semiconductor chips. 90% of them are made in Taiwan. These are the tiny little brains that run everything. Our phones, our cars, AI, military hardware, you name it. This incredible dominance is what's called Taiwan's silicon shield. And it's a powerful defense, because if an invasion ever stopped those factories, the entire world economy would grind to a halt instantly. And this silicon shield puts everybody else, especially places like Europe, in a really tough spot. I mean, they have to publicly agree with the One China policy if they want to trade with Beijing, but at the same time, their economies are completely hooked on those Taiwanese chips, and their main security partner is the U.S. They're stuck right in the middle, walking the exact same tightrope as Washington. So let's recap. You take this explosive history, you mix in all the current political tension, and then you add a dash of the entire world depending on their tech, and what you get is a recipe for disaster. There are a few very clear ways this whole thing could explode. Most experts see three main ways this could go hot. The first one is obvious. Taiwan officially declares independence. That would pretty much force Beijing to act. The second one is a little fuzzier. Beijing just decides that some red line has been crossed even if nothing official happened. But the third one, that might be the scariest. A simple accident. A couple of jets get too close. Two ships bump in the night. Something small that just spirals out of control before anyone can stop it. And that leaves us with the big unsettling question that leaders in Beijing, Taipei, and Washington are asking themselves every single day. You've got rising nationalism, a shaky new government in Taiwan, and the entire world's economy hanging in the balance. So is this fragile peace going to last? Or is it just a matter of time before the first shot is fired?